Hello and welcome to the news button. In today's news analysis, we shall shed light upon the selection of the next Dalai Lama. On March 27th, the 14th Dalai Lama announced the reincarnation of the third most senior Lama or spiritual leader of Tibetan Buddhism and the head of the Gelugpa school in Mongolia. The 10th Khalkha, Jetsun Dhampa Rinpoche, was anointed by the Dalai Lama himself in a ceremony attended by some 600 Mongolians. The Mongolians have traveled to Dharamshala in Himachal Pradesh to attend the event that has huge ramifications in the fight between the Dalai Lama and the Chinese government, and for the survival of the Tibetan Buddhism. In this video, we shall examine why the office of the Dalai Lama is so important to Tibetan people, the enigmatic process of selecting the Dalai Lama, and the strong religious beliefs associated with it. Last but not the least, how and why China has always opposed the Dalai Lama's authority. The 14th Dalai Lama, Tenzin Gyatso, the spiritual leader of Tibet, will turn 88 on July 6, 2023. With his advancing age, the question of who will succeed him has become all the more pressing. One of the most recognizable facets of Buddhism, the Dalai Lama is a very important figure in bringing Buddhist teachings to the international community. Traditionally, the successor to the Dalai Lama is identified by senior monastic disciples based on spiritual science and visions. Since the Dalai Lama is a highly influential figure, choosing a successor is not just a religious issue, but a political one too. So why the Dalai Lamas carry so much of importance? Well, all Dalai Lamas are thought to be the direct manifestations of the Bodhisattva of compassion, Abalatikeshwar. In Buddhism, Bodhisattvas are spiritual masters who work solely for the benefit of other people. Nirvana or enlightenment or liberation from the cycle of birth and death is the ultimate goal of Buddhist lives. As per Mahayana sect of East Asia and Tibet, Bodhisattvas have reached this highest realization. Mahayana Buddhists also believe the Bodhisattvas choose to be reborn, to experience the pain and suffering of the world, to help other beings attain enlightenment. In Tibetan Buddhism, Bodhisattvas carry identified lineages of rebirths called Tulku. The one who is believed to be a reborn teacher, master, or leader is considered a Tulku, and there are hundreds of such lineages, but the most important and respected and well known is the Dalai Lama. Till now, there are 14 generations of Dalai Lamas, spanning 6 centuries. They are linked through their acts of compassion and their wish to benefit all living beings. Let's have a look at how the current Dalai Lama was selected. The current Dalai Lama was enthroned when he was just 4 years old. He was renamed as Tenzin Gyatso. After the 13th Dalai Lama died, disciples closest to the Dalai Lama set about to identify signs indicating the location of his rebirth. There are usually predictions about where and when a Dalai Lama will be reborn, but the proper child is identified through further tests and science. There is a miraculous event surrounding the search for the 14th Dalai Lama. After the death of the 13th Dalai Lama, his body lay facing south. After a few days, his head had tilted to the east. Even an unusual fungus appeared on the northeastern side of the Buddhist shrine. This indicated that he must have been reborn as the next Dalai Lama, somewhere in northeastern Tibet. A mysterious lake called Lamoi Latso, which was used to see visions of the location of the Dalai Lama's rebirth, was also checked. Finally, the search party zeroed in on a 2-year-old boy named Lamo Dhundup, matching all signs. He was just the right age for a reincarnation of the 13th Dalai Lama, based on the time of his death. In his memoirs, the 14th Dalai Lama recounts about his early life that he remembered recognizing one of the monks in the search party, even though he was dressed as a servant. As a little boy, he even asked for the rosary beads that monk had worn around his neck. These beads were previously worn by the 13th Dalai Lama. The search party came back again to test the young boy. He was able to correctly choose objects that belonged to the previous Dalai Lama, including a drum and a walking stick. In 1950, after China invaded and annexed independent Tibet, the Dalai Lama fled to India in 1959 and took political refuge in India and set up a government in exile in Dharamshala in Himachal Pradesh. So how is China responding to any future selection of Tibet's highest spiritual guru? In 1995, the Dalai Lama chose 6-year-old Gendun Choki Nima as the successor of the 10th Panchen Lama. China detained the boy. Since then, nothing is known of his whereabouts. Panchen Lama is the second most important Tulku lineage in Tibetan Buddhism. In response, the Tibetan people revolted as the newly selected 11th Panchen Lama was detained. The Chinese government appointed the son of a Chinese security officer as its own Panchen Lama in place of the one chosen by the Dalai Lama. The Panchen Lamas and Dalai Lamas have historically played major roles in recognizing each other's next incarnations. China also wants to appoint its own Dalai Lama. But it is important to Tibetan Buddhists that they are in charge of the selection process. The current Dalai Lama is confident that the Tibetan people would not trust the Chinese appointed Dalai Lama. The US government has expressed support for the Dalai Lama. In December 2020, the US Senate passed the Tibetan Policy and Support Act, which recognizes the autonomy of the Tibetan people. The Biden administration reiterated in March 2021 that the Chinese government should have no role in the Dalai Lama's succession. However, the Chinese Foreign Ministry had declared in 2011 that only the government in Beijing can appoint the next Dalai Lama, and no recognition would be given to any other candidate appointed by anybody. It's crystal clear from this that the process of finding the 15th Dalai Lama will certainly be difficult. It might be somewhere outside of Tibet and under the watch of international media and the global Tibetan diaspora. Clearly, the Dalai Lama's reincarnation is a civilizational struggle between China and the Tibetans over who controls Tibetan Buddhism. It's not merely about the selection of one individual to an important office, but it's about who heads the Tibetans. Hope you liked the video. Then leave your comments in the comment section. And before leaving, do not forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you. Thanks for your time.